Sanan,
Yes.
Sanani.
Sanan-sanani. Or sanani, Iranian. Depends how you want to call it. Everyone calls me different.
Well, it's very nice to meet you
Nice to meet you too.
and to try and learn more about sterling real estate investment.
Uh-huh.
Would that
Sure.
be the correct way of terming
Yes,
it?
Sterling Property Advisors, Sterling Investments, however you like to call it.
So, can you tell us more about who Sanan is?
Sure. Sanan's me. I'm a 25-year-old real estate entrepreneur. I graduated from American University of Dubai when I was 20 years old, 2 weeks before I became 21. So after that, I started getting into understanding how the real estate business works, because my whole family is in the real estate business. My mother, my father, my uncles, even my friends, my closer friends, they're all in the real estate business. So I kind of went and dived in deeper into the real estate business, on how people have made their wealth in real estate. And I joined the brokerage service there. Then after that...
In Dubai?
In Dubai. In Dubai. Then after that, I got into the BRRRR model: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's a model that actually in the United States they're using it, and all over the world. It's one of the most classical ways of making wealth in real estate. And when I learned all of that from my mentors, I saw that there is little room for me to do that in Dubai, considering that there's nothing to renovate. Everything's new.
Yes.
Everything was new.
Yes.
So my father said, "Hey, come check out. There's somewhere close to me in Iran and close to you in Dubai, same time zone as Dubai." So I came here to Georgia, and I saw, wow, there's a lot of things I could renovate. There's a bunch. I'm looking at everything, and everything could use a renovation, and I could add value in it. So that's when I came.
But would you say that that's still your major focus in Georgia?
No, that's my
It started that way.
Yeah, it started that way. That's
Yeah.
my personal focus. And then when I came here, I saw that the real estate companies here. Well, first because I was an investor myself, I wanted to buy some properties, and I would see that all the real estate companies kind of let me down. You know, I was in touch with 6 or 7 different companies. I didn't have to be. If I just saw one that could do the job right, I would stay with them. You know, I'm not the person who believes you should have a lot of brokers. You just need one, and make sure he does it right. And they all let me down, and I just came from Dubai, the place where they have the best service and everywhere. And I saw so many things they're lacking here, and I found the gap. At the moment, we're working on increasing the quality of our service, while we don't want it to get out of control. If too many people come and jump in on our services, then we will have to expand, and we can't expand. We're right now what we're doing is we're trying to keep it a kind of a small group of investors who has access to our services. We have a limited amount. We don't want to have more.
Because obviously that's how you provide better services,
Yes.
by having a limited number. So
Yes.
that's where you tend to try and set up almost like a family relationship.
Yes.
And you almost like look at your customers as members
Yes.
of your family.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so how do you create that?
So, it started with when we first came here, we looked at the things we needed, and we looked at the things we needed help with, and we wanted to, once we got it, after left and right and going everywhere, and asking all the questions, we realized that we could provide this service for our family members and our friends, our close friends, and when they would come here, they would, we would have all the answers that they want to ask, and we've asked them all before. So then it turned into, I filled the gap, and we created a company, Sterling Property Advisors, and at the moment we're operating to friends and family members who want to invest in Georgia, because they trust us, obviously, and we're slowly expanding, and a friend of a friend, and they are coming as well, and
And most of these people came from, just like I noticed that when I've traveled and I come to a country being from America, you tend to gravitate towards people that are like-minded. So when you talk about friends and people, you're talking about people from your time in UAE.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I lived there for 20 years, moved there.
20 years?
Yes, yes.
You weren't at university for 20 years.
No. I did my junior school, my high school, and my university, all in the UAE. I was there before the boom. I was there before all those buildings rose. I actually grew with them. So as I kept growing one year after another, there was like 10, 15 buildings popping up everywhere. It was quite interesting.
It seems like a lot of people are coming from the UAE, and I've encountered here in Georgia even a person is Indian, but he worked in UAE, and he came through UAE, and now he started a spa store here in Georgia. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the UAE has a lot of interaction with Georgia.
Yeah, they're one of the main investors. They're in the top 10 investors of the countries that poured in money in this country. And there's a lot. There's UAE, Sheikh Al Nahyan of Abu Dhabi, they own a bank here, they own a hotel here. So
he like led the way. Somehow it seems like people are following.
Yes. He's led the way, definitely. And a lot of Saudis, Qatar, not just UAE, mostly GCC members, they're all coming here, they're investing, whether it's in restaurants, cafes, or real estate. They find it all to be affordable, attractive.
So it's affordable, but they also must have other reasons. What is it about Georgia that makes them feel comfortable? I mean, you're obviously you're doing your best to make them feel comfortable by providing superior service. Mm-hmm. But what is it about the Georgia real estate market that attracts them?
The price.
The price?
The price, definitely. The first thing is the price. Real estate in Georgia. So it's been only 20 years, around 20 years, where Georgia has become a democratic country.
Right.
And,
dramatic changes.
Dramatic changes. And all you could say is that it's only moving up from there. There is a bit of ups and downs and rules that change along the way, of course, but a developing country develops. That's what it does. It's just basic economics. To not get so complicated there, there's room to grow. There's more room to grow than not.
But they've made it more friendly than, I mean, other countries used to be part of Russia, like Bulgaria, but they haven't succeeded in quite the same way.
It's complicated to buy properties there. It's here you could buy a property and register it under your name in one day.
They've streamlined it.
Yeah, if it's not hard for you to make a decision, it could take 3 days for you to come to Georgia, buy a property, register it under your name, and go.
Wow.
So easy, and the ease of doing business here is fantastic. It's incredible.
So tell me more about what's easy. So obviously we know there's low cost.
Low cost.
What about tax advantages?
Tax advantages, if you're going to buy it on an LLC as a company, mm-hmm. Straight away you can get your VAT back, 18%. So you can consider that as an 18% discount. And if you're renovating an apartment, if you didn't buy a complete apartment, all the products you buy along the way, and you're buying them as your company, right? You could get the 18% on top of all those products back as well. So,
wow.
I like to see it as a discount. Mm-hmm. You know, that 18% could be your next down payment for your next property, for example.
That's that. What about property taxes? I thought I'd heard that there wasn't property taxes in Georgia.
Property taxes.
But if you're saying if you buy it in your personal name as opposed to through the LLC.
Yes.
And these are all the things, obviously I shouldn't get too technical on it, but these are all the things that you help people. You advise them and you help them. You facilitate them doing it in the best way.
Depending on the reason of investment and the reason of what they want to do here, I'll be able to let them know if it's better to be on the personal name or LLC. If they're buying 1 or 2 properties and they don't want to sell it and they don't want to make business with it, I would recommend to just buy it under your personal name, because then the rent is not getting taxed as opposed to the LLC. It gets taxed 18% as well. If you're not going to sell it, no need. But if you want to renovate and sell, or if you want to be more business if you want
Hands-on?
to get more in the future and everything, it's better to be on your LLC, because when you sell it, you also don't need to pay the tax. It gets transferred to the person buying it.
So when it gets transferred to the person, does it get transferred to them in their bank account in Georgia or in their home country?
No, in Georgia. In Georgia. So we open up a bank account for our investors. We open up a company for our investors. We even have a premium banking service where we can get them a private banker, personal banker. And we do all of those things for investors. It takes around 4 days to open everything, the starter pack, registration services, and we start from there, and then.
So you say 4 days. Obviously, you've tailored this so that someone doesn't have to be here very long to accomplish these things, because that's fast.
4 days is fast.
4 days is very
with
fast.
the help of the government, obviously making everything easy, and the ease of doing business here.
They
ranked
laid
pretty
the
high this year.
groundwork. They laid the groundwork, maybe, but obviously, if you don't have the service to make that happen, I mean, the average person couldn't come into town and make that happen in 4 days, even with the government having you make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we know where to go, who to speak to. We have the contacts to make everything very fast and reliable contacts too.
If they want to do that BRRRR that you mentioned, where they want to buy and renovate, so if they find a property and they think this looks like a good opportunity and they check with you, then they want to renovate it. They want to change, make something different about it. You can help them. You have the services to make that happen?
Yes. We even have the services to finance them. Whether it's from the bank or if it's from another credit company. We have the connections for that as well. But most importantly, that's what we want to offer for our members, the BRRRR. If they want to start with the BRRRR, they would have to first, they'd have to start with us from the very, very beginning. It's not like they'll buy one property and another, with some agent or somewhere, then they come with us asking for help. That property probably doesn't meet our qualifications,
right.
You know. So from the beginning, if they want to start with this, they should start with us from A, and we'll take them all the way till Z, and we're here.
But if someone made a foolish mistake and happened to start with another broker, they could. You're not saying that they couldn't start over with you, right?
They can.
Come to you and say,
yes.
please help us.
Well,
we were stupid and foolish in this,
Well,
selecting this other broker. Can you please help us?
What we do is we would have to sell those two properties if it wasn't fit.
Right.
And then we could start over. But obviously we will calculate and try if we could start with those properties itself. If he invested in a good area or a good building, we could see if we could just keep that and start buying more in that building. But thing is, most of the cases that I've been receiving lately are people who have come here, they bought one or two properties from an agent, they leave, and that property has like spider webs in their apartment, nobody took care of it. Those guys just were after the commission and finished. They never took care of the property.
I understand.
And then
they tell me
they call every single real estate broker in Georgia and they don't pick up, they don't answer, they don't respond to mail, and they couldn't find a property manager in time to start getting that ROI back on the investment. So all these problems, all these gaps, we're trying to fill it.
I actually understand that firsthand, because when I came here, I was looking for an apartment to rent, and I actually hired a broker. I don't know if I should mention their name on tape. It's property management, and they are a disaster. And everything you're saying about not answering the phone, not keeping an appointment, making promises that were not kept, all the way to the point where I moved into an apartment and one day my power was cut off. And I'm not making this up. And I actually now do posts where I talk about these people and tell people do not do business with this company, because they're a fraud. They literally are trying to cheat people. But obviously that's not your case, and that's why we want to talk about the positives of what you do, not the negatives of what other people do.
Mm-hmm. We want to remain small, first of all, as a company, because then everything is in order. We don't want to start expanding in 20, 30 people at once, and then it's uncontrollable. So so far, we are a small company. We want to remain small, and we want our investors to be a small amount of investors, long-term investors, who are not here just to buy one property and go out. Oh, of course, I could help them with that, sure, but they're not what we would call our investors. Our investors are a group of people who would come here to buy one property in the beginning so that we could kind of play the game of Monopoly, 4 houses, 1 hotel. So we will grow their assets over time, including their banks in the financials in their banks. So their bank accounts are going to be doing fine. Their assets are going to be doing fine. They're all on paper. The banks are going to be helping them on this. So the second property and the third property, they don't have to pay full cash. They just have to pay 20 or 30% down payment, and the rent from the first apartment will pay for the rent for the second. And the second one will pay for the third. The third one will pay for the fourth. And the VAT they're getting from these companies will be spent on the renovation. And, it's kind of...
How do you decide what project you will recommend to your clients? What's the process you go through?
I wouldn't recommend anything I wouldn't buy myself. This is number one. I don't want to sell something that I wouldn't see having it for myself as an investment. But how do I choose? Well, first I would have to ask the person, what is it for? Is it for your residency? Is it for your family? Is it for your retirement? Or is it for actually purely investment and ROI? When I figure this out, I kind of know how to handle with my client, and I would see, is this a short-term goal? Do you have a long-term goal?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to grow your portfolio or just get your residency and start like a business? This is how I would choose, but on that side. On the project side, I check projects every day, morning, night, and always like to see new projects too. And I see, how is the developer? Does he have history? Is he building so many projects at the same time? Because that's not always a good idea. Or is he, focused on one? Usually people who have like 10 projects open at 0%, 5%, 10%, they're kind of running away from their last project, and they kind of need money for their last project, so they open a new one. And it's a trap. It's a trap a lot of developers around the world go through. So I check if that's the situation, what's going on, how is their history, how is the materials, are they being used as advertised, are they actually doing it the right way? Onto seeing supply, and what's the supply, what's the demand of that building, how much is it getting rented, and what's most of all the service charge. Going back to how some buildings are white frame or gray frame and they're left kind of like that. Most of them have the windows. The ones without the windows.
I actually haven't heard the
That's a
term
black-
gray frame. I've heard the term white frame. Black frame means unfinished.
Yeah, black frame is a door, windows, hopefully, and concrete.
Why do people do that? Maybe you could answer that for me,
So-
because I've been very curious. Most people, including myself, have never heard the term black frame. And you come to Georgia and you see many buildings, they say black frame, and I'm like, why did they do that? Because what they've done is they've created something that you now inherit. And you don't know what problems it may have, and it also limits your ability to change the design, because you've already got the framework of a building. You've got the beginnings, right? And so you can't just come up with something new. You have to work within that parameters. So why did they do that?
So most foreigners, actually, when they come here, they would like to buy something ready and complete and green. I'll get to that, yeah. So they call it green. But that's not the case here. And not just here, also Ukraine and Russia and everything. The norm is to complete the building and keep it black or white. White means the cables and the electricities, for example, are also there.
Okay.
And the plumbing is done and the technicals are done. White is that. Black means even that's not done.
And what is gray?
And gray is in between. So gray is in between.
Gray is like in life, it's a gray area, and we don't know exactly what it means.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, fair enough. So again, why did they do black?
So
they think it helps them sell it, or is it because they ran out of money, or what?
Well, not all the Georgians want a complete building for themselves, a finished apartment for themselves. They want to add the value themselves. They want to choose what materials to buy. And especially it's a small country, everyone knows a plumber, electrician, a designer, a renovator. They know how to do it themselves too, you know. Georgians, they know how to get their hands dirty. So most people, they don't want the value added price because of the furniture and the finished things. They want to buy it themselves and choose how to design it and renovate it however way they want.
So they believe they save money
They believe they
by
save
buying
money.
it black frame. So that's why they're
And also
oriented towards that market.
And also more room to sell. When they want to sell, they can sell it and have some profit margin for them as well.
Well, that actually makes some sense.
But I would recommend to buy white frame, not black frame, because when you're buying black frame, then there's some technical stuff that you're going to have to do, like electricity and plumbing. But if you buy white frame, plumbing and electricity is already done. Most of the time the plastering is done, it's white, it's a white room, you're in a white box and you get to kind of paint it, you know, you do the cosmetic works, it's kind of fun. And it doesn't take so much time, maybe 45 days maximum. You choose your own colors and you choose your design, if you're going to do ceramic or tiles or parquet, laminate, you get to, it's quite fun. So,
But if a foreign investor found a place where they liked the location and the property and it was black frame, there wouldn't be a problem if they have you because you have all the connections.
yeah. So we do that as well. We prefer to do it for white frame because black frame, I would like to have the person with me telling me where he would like the plugs to go.
Right.
You know, but we do for white frame. If people want to build, renovate and design something, we can do the renovation works and the design works for them.
What if it's a really old house and it's falling down? What do you do?
You mean to demolish and build again?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. What would be, because I see a lot of houses like this that have been abandoned for a long time. So are they worth renovating? Because a lot of people like the idea of renovating, but maybe it's not the right choice.
There's time. I mean, there's going to be time that's going to be needed to allocate to that. Whether it's me doing it or himself, we would have to have our architect come, and it's a lot of back and forth with the city hall, Maria. We're going to have to approve the demolition and then approve the new design. Once the design is approved, it could take 1 month or 6 months, you know. Then we could start. It's not a problem also. We could demolish and build again. We also have a customer who wants to build a villa. He has a land and he wants us to build it. So we do some cases like that too. But most of all,
That's obviously not going to be something to rent. That's going to be more something that he's going to
for
live
themselves.
in.
Something for themselves. Yeah. Most of all, those are just sometimes we have customers like that, but the ones we're focusing on are the ones who want to build a portfolio.
Right.
And mostly a portfolio of places that we are able to rent it daily. Because in Georgia, there's 2 million tourists coming every year. That number is about to increase. So it's a perfect place for Airbnb, Booking.com. Since the hotels are kind of expensive here compared to the Airbnb and Booking.com, it gives you an advantage. If you have a very nice apartment that's meeting international standards, that looks nice and everything's nice about it, and the service is nice, there's someone to clean and change the towels and everything every day.
So you provide all the services.
Yes. And we have our own clients as well that come and visit, and we use those apartments. We offer those apartments to them.
Why not?
Yeah. And I prefer. Investors. I prefer to offer investors these kind of apartments that will be rented daily, and they could calculate it. You could calculate as 50% occupancy and see if it's worth your while or not. But it's not 50; it's usually more, 65, 70, 80.
Well, I noticed that you say you have an ability to help them maximize that because you actually have an algorithm that you mentioned, which I found interesting.
We have an algorithm.
Tell us more about that.
We have an algorithm. It's a smart pricing algorithm. It's a really special one. What it does is that it sees all the properties available right now that are not that are vacant for daily rent, and it kind of starts to match, strategically price the property that's vacant, our property that's vacant, in a way that makes it attractive compared to all of them. This way, for example, if there's a lot of properties available today, my property would start to become cheaper till it gets rented. And as it's getting more rented, the price is going higher and higher, back up to the normal price I want. So we have a base price, and we have the low price, and we have the high price, and we have it saved in a way that as the availability of all the people and the number of visitors coming to that website, our platforms, changes, so does the price. And also to do with times, to do with holidays. It's very, very smart. And that's actually one of the main indicators of how we're able to rent our apartments out right now.
So rather than an apartment just sitting there in a listing, you actually have the algorithm helping you to make sure that some action will be taken if it's not renting out.
Not just the algorithm, it's with the pictures, professional pictures from the very beginning, the description, the title says it all.
I've noticed that it's really, I mean, considering that most people have an iPhone that can take pretty decent pictures now, I mean, that's very commonplace. I've found it very surprising how poor quality the photos are on a lot of properties that are listed.
On a lot of platforms too.
Yes, and I still can't quite understand why that is. I mean, why would you show a photo of your dog in the yard of a house for rent? I mean, exactly what is the attraction? I mean, I like dogs.
And the detergent.
Exactly. You know, you show a dirty kitchen instead of a clean, or if they show the kitchen at all, that's really amazing, is that you can't even find a photograph of the kitchen often in the house. But there's no real explanation for that, is there? It's just, you don't do it that way. You make sure that the photos are properly taken and the information is written in English instead of translated from Georgian, which I've noticed does not translate well.
No.
The auto-translation...
Unlike anything I've read before.
Well, and that's obviously, Georgian language is very unique, isn't it? And it makes it tend to be difficult to translate with using an auto-translation. So you write the copy, you take the photographs, you have the professional maintenance team. Now, you also mentioned you have a smartphone.
Smart door.
Smart door. And what is that?
It's what we recommend our investors to buy. It's a smart, we remove the door and the lock and the keys. So the keys no longer stay with me. It stays on my phone and his phone. And it's a door, fingerprints access for the owner. The owner. And then a password for me and a password for him, with my name registered and his. So every time I enter this place, you can also get a smart camera. Every time I enter this place, he gets a notification. Every time a tenant enters, he gets to put the password. So he gives a check-in and a check-out. So whether it's him or me, usually I do all the check-ins and check-outs. But if there's an investor who doesn't know us and doesn't trust us and anything, this is the best way we offer. So, well, we don't need the keys. You have the keys on your phone. So you can give us the check-in and check-out. And our guests, as soon as they enter, they get to see that it's the guest. And
that sounds fantastic.
And for cleaners, they can give a temporary password, one-time password as well.
And so if this investor, say, wanted to let a friend of theirs come and stay in the unit, they, from their phone, could give them access.
Anywhere from the world.
Without bothering you. No. They could just say, block out this time. But it could be totally private because you're not involved then. They use it off of their phone. That's a fantastic service.
And there's a smart camera. The smart camera is quite fun. Every time you see some movement around your door, some activity, you get to see when it was. You get to see a time when those motions occurred.
Oh, the motion sensor.
The motion sensor. And also you get to talk to your, through the smart door and smart camera, if you have them both there, you get to talk to your client. If you see like someone try to type in the password 3, 4, 5 times, if there's an emergency on your phone, it's buzzing, and you get to come and start talking. Hi, how can I help
them out?
Yeah, you can help them out.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. I've never heard of anything like that.
It's revolutionary, and it's the best thing that...
What about security? Is it a common to have a security service watching property here? Like in the United States, many people, they have a full-time security service that can be tied to cameras and or have a code inside the building.
Oh, that depends on the developer, yes. That
Okay.
depends. I know a few, just to name King David Residency, they have the best securities, over 300 cameras everywhere, access for elevator, guest access and visitor access. It goes only to your floor. So,
Okay, so that's King David is very modern.
yes, yeah, that's one of the main projects I recommend for my investors to dive in on right now, especially to buy the small units and rent them out daily. Beautiful design, the exterior,
By the river.
by the river,
Good
beautiful
location.
design, good restaurant. I don't think we're gonna see another building that nice in the next 10 years. Maybe one or two more will pop up, but that one is
There is a lot
super.
of, I've seen a lot of buildings, a lot of development going on. Do you think that they're overbuilding? Is it like a potential bubble or?
Back to that question that I wanted to answer regarding the black frame and white frame. See,
Okay.
I find it kind of smart in a way that even if they overbuild, they're not finishing the apartments, so there wouldn't be a oversupply of available apartments for rent because those are not available. So
Oh,
it's
so it's not
gonna-
just houses, the apartments are also
It
gonna
could,
be black frame
yeah,
or
yeah.
white.
So the oversupply of buildings, if there was to be an oversupply, it would affect the price of the property, but not the rent of the property because it's not a finished property. It's black frame and
Oh.
white frame.
Okay.
So yes, maybe the price will go a bit down and it could go down, but the rent you're fine in the rent section because there's no oversupply of available apartments, especially meeting international standards.
Right.
You just have black and white frame apartments ready for sale. So I'm not too concerned about supply. If they can build all they want, as long as they don't finish the apartments,
I see.
the rent is not going to drop.
Your family,
Uh-huh.
this is a family business.
Yes.
So it's multi-generational. Who started it?
My father started this, so I'm the second
You're
generation.
the second generation.
Yeah, my father started this back in Austria.
You are the scion of the family. You
The
are
scion,
the one to inherit,
the heir,
take over, the heir apparent.
the heir. Yes. So my father, he started this back in Austria, and he lived there for around 20 years. And I think it was around 1965 to around 1990. Around this area, he started renovating all the outsides of the buildings with the bank. So he did the
In
burr.
In Austria.
Yeah. So he did the same thing, the burr, with fantastic deals. Back then it was 5% down payment only, and the interest I think was like 1%.
Wow.
So he did the burr. He started, obviously started with some small apartments. After this, he reached to a point where he's renovating castles and the outside buildings of across all the districts of
He
Vienna.
renovated
all
castles.
the districts. I mean, if we were in Austria right now, we could suddenly start seeing all these buildings my father renovated. And he was nominated as the 25th place out of the top 100 real estate managers of Vienna. He was number 25. He had around 35 companies at the time. He was running 35 companies, all related to real estate. And that
You have
was,
to send me, if you have any photos, you have to send me photos of the castles. 'Cause I
Oh,
love
definitely.
castles.
We have
I
the
have to see
projects.
it.
I have the
Please.
projects filed in my office as a memory, and that's where he also met my mother. My mother was also in the same business. My father helped her out with one apartment, and then she started also with the BRRRR method, going to 4 apartments, 8 apartments, and everything there.
That's a good foundation for a strong relationship.
Yeah, they were in the business. They were in the business together.
Make me a lot of money and I'll love you forever.
So they were in the same business together, and then my uncle is also in the same business, and my cousin is also in the same business.
That is definitely a
And
family
then,
affair.
and then a friend of my friend. It turned out that I looked at my life, and everyone's in real estate, or everyone that I am very close to have a proven track record of successfulness in real estate. So
But you picked Georgia.
I picked Georgia.
Out of most of the family, you focused on
I
Georgia,
picked Georgia,
for
yeah.
now.
Yeah, I believe in Georgia. The next 20 years in Georgia are going to be.
Is there any other areas besides Georgia that you find interesting potentially in the future?
If it's a developing country and if the banks are and the properties, if the numbers add up, if the calculations add up, sure. I mean,
Anything that comes to mind at this point?
for me, it's Georgia. I mean, I've considered the numbers and everything, and if I could see that my property is going to be giving me profit, and at the same time the bank is willing to give me more credit for my refinancing for the next project, that's all I need. That's all I can work with.
I know the travel industry seems to be growing and doing well, so that obviously bodes well for the daily rentals that you talked about.
Yeah.
Because there are other countries that are trying to develop tourism, but it seems like Georgia, it seemed to be having a little more success than some of the other ones. I know Bulgaria is having a difficult time.
Armenia too.
Armenia too, that's right. It's pretty much they have to come to Georgia before they go to Armenia. It's generally speaking not a destination on its own, which makes it difficult for them, right?
Yeah.
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan too. Georgia, it's kind of becoming the new thing in Europe. A lot of people still don't know about Georgia, and more people are becoming more aware the past 2-3 years. It's the new thing. It's a new destination. It's a place where it feels like Europe. It feels like
Looks like Europe.
Yeah, it looks like Europe. It looks like it has a bit of everything. You know, very nice cuisines, very nice restaurants. Some places feel like you're walking down Amsterdam. Some places feel like you're walking down London.
I don't even know how to say it right.
Champs-Élysées.
Like, yeah, Rustaveli.
Yeah, Rustaveli. And
very impressive.
And when you look, and when you feel like you're in Europe, they also claim they're the first Europeans, so you feel like you're in Europe, and it's very, very nice, and everything's affordable too.
They claim they're European, and yet I've done some research on this. There's a strong argument to say that it's Asia.
You're in the Caucasus.
But I understand when I read about it, they actually say that in the Caucasus, the mountains, that the watershed, meaning which way the water flows from the mountain, is the definition of a watershed. And if it flows one way, you're in Asia. And if it flows the other way, you're in Europe.
Interesting.
And according to the way the watershed flows in the Caucasus Mountains, Georgia is in Asia.
Interesting.
Yes, but of course they don't want to say that. They want to consider themselves as being in Europe.
They say in their DNA and everything, they're the first Europeans, and they're also the first who started winemaking. Now, some places you'd find it to be true, some places you would find it to be false, but they really take their wine seriously. They love their wine. And,
I love their wine also.
They also, yeah, and well, I find it interesting. Right now we're sitting in the Silk Road, you know, and it has a lot of history. The Silk Road has a lot of history. We're in the Caucasus. Half that side is Europe, half that side is Asia, and we're here. I find it interesting. I mean, the place itself has a lot of potential. And I think the government and the businesses around are doing everything they can to keep bringing it up. And I think there's a lot of organizations outside of Georgia that are funding Georgia as well. They're supporting Georgia. So there's a lot of good opportunities.
So your father started the business and obviously enjoyed quite a bit of success in Austria. Is he's still involved? Or you're the Georgia person. You're the one that's making it. He's not involved in Georgia, really.
No. Just me. I'm involved in Georgia. Obviously, with his support.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that it wasn't with his support. If I did, I apologize for that. Is there anything else you would like to talk about the membership that you try to create with your clients? Because obviously it's very important for them to be able to trust you, and you've shown that you're creating that trust with your services.
Yeah.
In terms, and even all the way to the smart door. I mean, it's just obviously creating a a situation where they know they can rely on you
I'm
and
not
not have
going
to worry.
anywhere. It's like a scream and a statement to say that after you buy a property, I'm still here. Don't be afraid. I'm not going anywhere. It's not gonna happen to you, you know. Especially because buying offshore is foreign investing it's risky at times, you know. Buying in another country and everything is risky. So I try to remove all of that risk. I'm trying to be there for them from A to Z. From buying the property, I'm there, and I don't let them just buy a property. I make them invest in a property. I show them all the numbers, why this would make sense, why this investment would be making sense, and I try to match it to their needs as well. If they would like to use the house in the future, I try to find one that they could also use in the future. From that to the renovation. From the design, also from the design and renovation, and from property management, we are there the whole way. In terms of property management, we send them the money 4 times a year, quarterly, and once everything is done, we also help them refinance. So the bank comes and checks how much equity there is, and we also help them rent it and how much equity there is in case they want to purchase their second one. So the second one, they don't have to put all their money down. They can put 20% or 30% down. And
So there's a lot of flexibility.
yeah.
As opposed to if someone was doing it on their own, they'd probably put a lot of money into one unit and then maybe they're done.
Membership, the membership is focusing only on people who would like to build their portfolio.
Right.
So we start with one property, maybe in 3 or 4 years they're on their 5th or 10th property. Whether it's financing from the bank or credit lines, we have the connections to get them the best deal and the best interest rates. Typically, the general interest rates here would be to pay 20-30% down payment. The remaining 70 or 80 would be over 10 to 15 years. And the interest rates here are from 5.5% to 9%. It's kind of like if you're getting 9%, that means you have no history. The banks are kind of taking a risk of giving you the money.
Right.
But it's still possible. If not, the credit lines make it possible. But generally, the interest rates here would be 7%. 7%. If your records and everything,
buyer.
7%. 5, you can go 5 as well. 5.5. If you have already got a couple, and you could start to negotiate and drop the interest rates from all of them.
Right.
And
because they believe they have less risk.
Yeah. So when they see there's no risks, you can go all the way down to 5.5% interest.
So the thing that differentiates Sterling from other real estate companies is the other real estate companies, if I understand it correctly, in my mind, the broker tends to want to do a deal. He wants to do one deal, he wants to get a commission. And once he's got that commission, there tends to be a lack of service after that. If they're even there at all, they might just disappear. And what you do with Sterling is that you want to provide the relationship that supports your investor. You're not just a broker, you're not just selling a product to get a commission. You're an investor.
That's right.
And so, first of all, you're providing that professionalism. We understand that. And you also, because you have very few clients and you're very selective, instead of just chasing that commission, you can devote more time and attention to the people that you are working with.
Yep. I believe our relationship shouldn't end after the first transaction. It should start.
It starts.
And most of the brokers here, they have it wrong. They don't even have experience to give financial or real estate advice. It's probably their 3rd or 4th month in the game. Maximum I've seen is 1 or 2 years experience, but just in brokerage, not as investment.
Right.
They know how to sell a property and where to go to register the property, but they don't know
as an agent.
They don't know the investment. You know.
Exactly.
They push you to buy what they want to sell.
Yes.
That's it. They don't push to buy what's right for you. And they see it as buying, not investing. There's a difference between buying property and investing in property.
Absolutely.
They're not functioning. Most agencies are not functioning. They're not operating. They're lazy. They're unprofessional. So
when you say not functioning, you mean the fact that they're not covering all aspects of what the customer's needs are.
Uh-huh.
They're functioning, meaning that they only have this one small function. They only have this one small thing that they do, and that is show a property, sell the property, get the commission, walk away.
They just show a property and hope they will buy it.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so when I understand what you're talking about that you do, you also provide, as part of your professionalism, as part of the service, is the communication that you have with your customers, because you are very connected with them.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because you answer the phone, but you actually even have a smartphone set up so that they can connect with you.
Yep.
Through the door entrance.
Yeah, there's an app. There's going to be a smart door. There's a smart camera, and from their smartphone, the smartphone has access to both the camera and the door and the key, and they'll be able to see every time a check-in and check-out has occurred. So there doesn't need to be trust, because that's the trust.
Right.
You know, I've got the keys. He's got the keys.
It's the ultimate communication. I mean, it's just the ultimate. They are connected to their property and to you and to the potential tenant. They're connected to everything.
They don't need to ask me, did the tenant come? When is the tenant coming in? He has all the information he needs. There's a record. It keeps track. There's a record, and it's part of the thing that differentiates me from all the other property management companies.
So your customer feels safe that they're being taken care of.
Yeah, we're a full service company. He doesn't need to have a brokerage and then have a property management company and then find another guy for renovation works. He doesn't need to go everywhere and meet 10 different companies. We're a full service company. We provide from all the way from buying their investment, choosing the right investment for them, to renovations, to design works, to property management.
And how do they know what their charges are going to be when it comes to doing business with you? Compared to other people, they don't always know necessarily what they're going to pay, do they? There's a possibility it might change.
No, yeah. So straight away we could show them the contracts, and they could see what they're gonna, the value they're gonna get in terms of different.
And in your case, you actually have your own lawyers that can write up a contract that could be customized if they need it to be, but also
Sure.
to form the company. This is something obviously that another real estate agent cannot do, and they cannot help them set up a company. They can't help them set up with banking, any of these aspects of investing.
They could, but there's a lot of bankers. They wouldn't know who to introduce them to.
Right.
Or there's a lot of branches. They don't know which one to introduce them to.
Okay.
They could help, sure. They could take them there and help them open a bank account, but we know the right bankers. We know the ones who are in the real estate game. We know the ones who help you, who will also tell you how you can get more finance. We have the right branches and the right senior bankers involved in our business. So it's another thing that stands us out from the rest.
So if we try to run a scenario of a typical investor, if there is such a thing, but someone is interested in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a little bit of research. They've looked at some of the properties, and they go, okay, this looks like it might be a possibility for me. They obviously don't know where to start. They don't know who to talk to. So hopefully they contact you and not some broker that's going to leave them hanging.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully. So let's assume on the bright side that someone has been fortunate enough to find you. Where does it go from there? How take us through what is the process of an investor learning about Georgia and investing with sterling?
Sure. Suppose you were the investor and you'd come on my website, you stumbled upon my website, and you contact us. You would give us your contact information. We would email you with when's a good time to call you, and when we get on the phone, I would answer any questions you might be having regarding Georgia, anything. It doesn't even need to be real estate. And from then on, we can see when's your next available time where you can come hop on over here for an inspection trip. Most of my customers are in the GCC, so it's just a 2, 3, 4 hour flight away. There's 2, 3 flights daily from each one of those countries that I'm dealing with. Yes.
Oh.
And they would come here for 3, 4 days. I would organize their trip from picking them up from the airport to accommodation if they want. And the accommodations are the ones that we have like from our investors. So they get to also see the services. They get to see live action how we would treat their apartment. So from the airport to the accommodation, they can go out for tours in the mornings. We could arrange for them, or in the afternoons. Besides those tours for getting a taste of the food and the scenery, we take them to three properties, 3 developers where we see fit his criteria and the reason for his investment, his reason for investing. If he's a quick decision maker, if he's quick and he knows what he wants from these 3, straight away we could even register and purchase his property under his name in that trip, in that 3 to 4 day trip. That quickly. If not, we could consider that as an inspection trip, and the next trip he could definitely purchase his investment.
Or does he actually have to come here to purchase the property?
No.
It depends on how far he's established a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
As far as whether he's actually formed a company to invest through.
If he wants to.
But if he hasn't done that, then he would have to come back to sign the documents.
Am
I correct?
But if he wants to buy from his personal name, he just has to send a deposit to the developer's bank account. And I'd be back and forth contact with the developer, so would he. And he would have to deposit in their account and then sign over email. But that's if the project is not complete. If the project is being built, he can just deposit the money and then pay in installments. And when the project is complete and when the title deeds are ready, he will have to come back and register and sign officially here.
So what would be the reason that, say, someone would want to purchase a project that was not complete? You would think that they would want something that's complete so they could start generating revenue. Mm-hmm. What would be the reason that they would want to invest in something else?
Low entry price is one of them. Developers, when they start their projects, if it's anywhere from 0 to 30% complete, they really have good offers. They have good offers. They start really low. They make sure that people who invest in it as the construction progresses, they start raising their prices as well. So you profit from it. And when you buy low, and then when it's complete and you renovate, you have more profit margin for yourself. Usually if you buy something complete and renovate and you would like to sell it, you'd get 20% profit margin. If that's the business you want to go to, buy, design, sell. But if you start from the construction phase, you would get even more than 20% profit margin. I know Georgian designers love to buy early and pay in installment plans. Mm-hmm. So they're paying a little bit, $500 monthly, $1,000 monthly for their installment plan. Mm-hmm. And when it's done, they will renovate it and sell it.
Right.
But Georgia has good payment plans. They have good. Some developers even customize their payment plans according to how you would like to pay. Investing in the property early stages is always it's always a good idea if you're choosing the right developer.
So you help them choose the right developer. You also know which areas are the best areas. What are the up and coming areas? What are the areas that maybe are not so good in terms of renting out on a daily basis or a monthly basis?
Yes.
So
there's some that have a more capital appreciation on a yearly basis, but the rent is not so good. But you could count on that property to really increase in price in the next 5-10 years, but the rent is not so good yet. They're more in the developing regions of the area, like Gildani and Diromi. That's where all the developers are moving now to build. But I think, next year the government's planning to make a lot of more commercial opportunities there, so the jobs go there as well.
So the government here has a lot of control over where the developers can develop. Am I correct? Because I've noticed that it seems like the lines that define Tbilisi seem to be very set. You don't see a lot of houses or developments jutting off out by themselves. It seems to be like there are very defined lines, which I'm not used to when I've been to places like Bangkok or Kathmandu. There is no defined line.
No, it's
just
jungle.
Everything goes out in whatever direction people can buy the land and develop in. But that doesn't seem to be the case here.
No, not anymore. At least it used to be an architectural mess here because they would just approve all the buildings. Now they became really strict this year, which is something I really like. Now they're not approving just anything. They're approving only the good ones, only the good quality. Everything must be right. Everything must be correct. Everything must be meeting international standards for one, in terms of even emergency exits and fire escapes and everything. Everything's included. Now they're much more tougher. And not just that, residency used to be $30,000. If you buy a property for $30,000, you'd get a residency card. Now they've increased that to $100,000. So they're really attracting the right type of investors, and at the same time they're also fixing that mistake of approving everybody's construction permit. So there's an interesting turn of events, interesting things will be happening.
So you can, if your investor wants to get a residency status in Georgia, you can help them with that?
Yes, sure.
So it can be done based on the dollar amount of a property. Now it's 100,000.
100,000.
And is there any other aspects of the qualification that come into play? Well, I suppose whatever they are, you have people that can help them with it.
Yes. We have the lawyers to obtain all the necessary documents for them. For me, we make sure the property is 100,000 and it's right and everything. I make sure I have the real estate side covered, then I have the lawyers that could help them with obtaining the residency. If for any reason, there's a few countries that cannot get the residency. We have to make sure they're not from them. But if they are, there are ways we could try to help them as well. But most of all, we guarantee residency for our customers, and if they don't get the residency, we will refund their money back.
Oh my goodness!
We will sell that property.
Really?
The same money he put down, we'll give it back to him.
Oh, that's quite a guarantee.
Yeah.
So where do you see Sterling in the future?
Okay.
What do you see your reality will be in, I don't know, 1 year, 5 years? Where do you think you're going to be going?
In 5 years, I see Sterling having a group of investors, not exceeding more than 25 investors, a group of investors, and a project, and everyone has invested in this project, and I see it. I see it more on a, instead of selling developer projects, we're selling our own personal projects. So we would be building in Georgia, and we would have our investors join in on the gains. They would be the earliest investors, of course.
Right.
Afterwards, we would sell it also to the public, but
maybe even to a smaller investor that didn't want to participate in the development but might want to buy one of the units.
Yes, exactly. And we would be doing it as a whole, as a group,
right,
as a circle, and it's the way we would start building 1, 2, 3, 4, and we would continue there. So I would say the result of having 25 investors already with me, it would take around 5 years for me to say I would have 25 good top investors who are interested and motivated to take advantage of the market.